Okay, let's get going. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to run through our P6-Scrubber. Our latest version has a lot of nice new features, and Sue is going to run through those for you today. I'm Nicole Jardin. I'm the founder and CEO of Emerald, and I'm joining you from Calgary. And Sue Hopkins is joining us from Wyoming, and she will be doing the heavy lifting. She'll show you the software in action. So before we jump in to go through the software, let's talk about some of the pretty common struggles that we deal with when we're running P6, especially with outside team members sending us projects from just about anywhere. Before I run through that, I just wanted to ask a quick question. How does your team actually deal with outside scheduling? So teams that are remote, different users. If you can answer the poll, you can go ahead and send that through and I'll share the results with whoever was able to answer. Yeah, so what we find is there's some pretty typical ways that people deal with this. So they either have different databases, they modify the XCR manually, which is not recommended at all. We've seen some corruption happen, and import data or give them Excel spreadsheets to create data in. So there's a lot of different methods. Looks like people who were able to answer have dealt with a few different options. So importing XCRs and pre-cleaning them is what we're going to focus on, so that you don't need those extra databases. You don't need all these special global changes and things like that to clean up your database. So we're going to focus on bringing those XCRs in, making sure that you set up a system in P6-Scrubber to keep your P6 from being polluted, so that you don't have to spend a bunch of time dealing with keeping your database up to date, current, making sure codes and UDFs are not corrupted. And making sure that when you do receive a file, that the contractor is providing the file in the way that's been expected, okay? And making sure that the engineering companies, the contractors sending you data, that we're not bringing in things that we do not need or want in our P6 environment. So those are the typical problems that we see. And how much time you spend doing those cleanups really varies. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask one more poll question. It really varies depending on obviously how many projects you're importing, how many times you get them to update in a given week. So if you want to go ahead and answer the question, just for out of interest sake. And it varies a lot. So we have some, looks like no one's answering. Oh, here it goes. Maybe it took a minute to come up. We have companies or some of our clients who require many updates. And yeah, maybe looks like some people are having trouble answering. It's all right. We'll go ahead and close that out. Some of our clients get updates weekly, some bi-weekly, maybe some once a month. Depending on what those updates look like, that really will dictate how much and how often you're having to spend time doing the cleanup. Okay, so I think a few people were able to answer. It was about five hours a month. So that time, we think P6-Scrubber is going to help you reduce considerably. So the benefits really are that saving time, making sure your reports will still work, making sure that some of your fields that are very important for reporting, for grouping, filtering, that sort of thing, don't get corrupted. And of course, making sure that things stay and hold together on the import. Okay, so we're going to run through how it works. Sue's going to show you. I'm just going to give you a bit of food for thought. So when she jumps into Scrubber, you're going to see it's quite easy to work with. You select the file you're bringing in and you scrub it out. And scrubbing will allow you to define what you want to scrub. Now, above and beyond that, some of these things that have been straggling around on the latest versions will also be handled. The POBS table and the risk types, which I think in version 20, it looks like Oracle has got those cleaned up now. But for older versions, those things still straggle along. So this will take care of those. You can deal with calendars, and she's going to show you in detail how that's going to work. User-defined fields, codes, cost codes, if you're using them and if your team members are using them, you'll be able to take care of those. And then some validations. So she'll run through some of the validations that are available in the system. We also deal with resources and roles, and Sue will run through those in detail to give you exactly how you can use the tool. And I'm pretty impressed with the software. It works very well and it saves a lot of time. So she'll go through in detail and she'll take a deeper dive and a closer look to it. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to you, Sue.
Okay.
Okay, coming your way.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so that we can take a look at the tool in action. So this is the sign-in screen for P6-Scrubber. Now, P6-Scrubber can be deployed in two different formats, if you will. There is one format that can be just purely a standalone. It doesn't need a database to run on. It doesn't need anything like that. You can set up your definitions, which I'll talk about later, and run your files through that. Now, what I am going to work on today and show you is the version that is actually pointed at and hooked to a database. And in fact, you can actually hook it to many different databases. So depending on which one, if you do have several different databases that you work with, you can use that database when you're actually working with P6-Scrubber. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And regardless of which version you have, it will all look the same here. The only difference is that you won't be able to see information in your database live, essentially, in P6-Scrubber. So you can see here that we have some general modules. We've tried to essentially deal with all of those little things that kind of are a headache when you are importing schedules and XCRs from outside of your organization. And first of all, I see that I have a definition already set up here, and I don't want that definition to show. What I want to do is I want to actually start from scratch. So there are two ways that you can create what we call a definition in P6-Scrubber. And what a definition is how you want to handle each piece of information as it comes in from your XCR. So the first thing I'm going to show is one of those validation pieces. And that's going to be an ID and a name check, so to speak. You can do it on project and you can do it on activities, IDs and names. I'm just going to open up the project one here. Now, for each module, you're going to choose whether you want to enable that to run on the XCR or whether you don't need it to run. So if you do want it to actually check and do this piece, you're going to enable it, and it's just a toggle button. By default, they are turned off. Now, in this case, we are going to, let's say we have a contract that specifically spells out what that project ID should look like when you receive a schedule from your, say, a contractor. Now, what you want to do is you want to define essentially a pattern. So we've tried to make, several different ways of expressing that pattern. You can do a contains, starts, or ends with. In this case, I'm going to show you a simple pattern. You can also do some advanced expressions. In that case, there may be, if you needed some assistance with that advanced expression pattern, we could certainly help you out with that. But I find in most cases, a simple pattern is going to take care of what you need. So when you have a simple pattern, you're just going to click in that field. And I want my pattern to start out with some letters. Now, I want those letters to be uppercase, and there should be 2 of them. So I'm going to define that and apply. Now, after that, I want to see 5 numbers. So I'm going to say any number, and I'm going to set it to 5, and I'm going to apply. Now I expect to see a dash. So I'm going to check this. I'm going to select this specific text. I'm going to put my dash in there and apply that. So now I've got 2 letters, 5 numbers, and a dash. Now, what comes after that doesn't matter. It could be soup to nuts. So what I want to say is I want to allow any character, and if I put 0 here, it's going to be unlimited. So it can be any character for as many characters as comes through. Now, as I've built this out, I have this box over here that's telling me whether what's in that box actually matches the pattern that I have described here. So in this case, I don't have anything. So it's telling me it doesn't match. Now, if I were to grab, something else and or put that in, I could actually check to be sure that what I have defined here is working. So it's going to give me that feedback immediately here. So we can do that for project name. We can also do that for activity ID and activity name. So if you do have that sort of specification spelled out, you can check that. Now, some of the other meat of what we have here are codes. So we have different levels of codes, of course. I'm going to take a look at activity codes. So I want to enable this. And on most of these modules, we have the option to decide if we are not defining every piece that comes in on an XCR. If an extra comes in this case, if an extra code comes in and it's not defined, I can choose to scrub that code out. So if you have specifications and we need to see this particular code and this particular code and anything else, we're just going to remove, you can certainly do that. Now, when you're building out a definition, you can do it 2 ways. We can do it from scratch. So if I wanted to do it from scratch, I could go and I could add a code type in this name. This is an activity code type. And let's say I want to add vendor. I have that, and it's a global code. And as I'm going, it's kind of coaching me on what I need to do next. Now it's saying, what do I want to do with this code? Well, essentially, if it comes in, I want to keep it. Well, now if I go over, it says, okay, I have my actions selected. Now if I come over, it says the new code type name can't be blank. So what I want to do is I actually want to match that to the vendor in my database since I have it. So now everything matches. Now, if I wanted to roll this down, this is a global code, mind you. If I wanted to roll this down, it's going to come in as a global code. Maybe I want to roll it down to the project level. I want to keep it separate from anything else of my vendors. I could actually choose to do that. In this case, I don't want to, but I could actually roll that down. Now, if I click this plus button, once I have my code type name defined, I have the ability to then start adding my dictionary. So again, I have that option of whether I want extra code values to be allowed to come in and to be created, or whether I want to delete those extra ones. Now, in most cases, you're going to have a list of values that are valid, essentially, for this code type. So I'm going to go on over to P6, and I'm going to go to my activity codes, and I'm going to find my vendor code. And I can see I have some values here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of those, and I'm going to copy them. You go try that again. All right. So now I can go back over into my scrubber, and I can use this little icon here called a bulk edit. When I use a bulk edit, I open it up, I copy it either from P6 or maybe it's from a spreadsheet or something, and then I can actually paste it in. It allows me to remove the first row if it's like a header row. In this case, I do want to do that. And if I have more columns than what I need to actually define, like I don't need this color column, I can actually pick and choose which ones I want to have come in and which ones I don't. So then I can apply it and I have it ready to go. So now I've got my dictionary all right there. Now in the case of UDFs, these I can actually, enable, of course. And on UDFs, depending on which module it's in, I can see where I have, activities, expenses, step, issue, and risks. So if I wanted to not bring in all or some of these, I could do that. Now, an easier way to define a definition is to use an XCR that you already have. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to actually create a new definition here. It's basically going to blank out what I just put in. And I am going to use a file that has been sent to me by my contractor. So I'm going to grab that XCR and I'm going to say open and import that file. P6-Scrubber is going to show me all of the information that is in that file in each one of these categories. So I can go look at my codes. In this case, it's a project code. And I can see that I've got some warnings here. These are what already exist in my file. So I've got some warnings. Number one, I'm going to scrub out any additional project codes that end up coming on subsequent schedules. Now on my district, if I hover over that, I can see that it matches. There is that district in my P6. However, I am seeing that there is a dictionary validation that is not working. So I can go down and look at my dictionary, and I can see that the matching value couldn't be found. So I know I have this. Let's see if we can find a match in our dictionary. So in my district dictionary, I don't have DIST standing for dictionary. I just have the D. So I can translate that and I can change that to say D5 means District 5, and now it matches P6. So I can stick handle each one of these. Now in my client type, it says there's no value in my database for this client type. So I don't want to bring that in. What I want to do is I actually want to delete it out. So I'm going to tell P6-Scrubber to scrub that out when it runs on this particular XCR. So when I click out, I've resolved everything on my project codes. Now UDFs, the same. We want to enable if you're going to run it. Then I can pick and choose, okay, what project level UDFs do I want to actually deal with? Well, maybe I have some new project UDFs coming in, but I don't really use WBS codes, so I don't want that to come in. I could also say, this WBS code, I want to scrub it out and I don't want to keep that. I can again see what I have that matches in P6. This does not match, and I know that I don't need to have that piece of information, so I can choose to scrub it out. But in the way of my submittal date, I know I have something similar to that. So what I can do is I can go and see exactly, maybe I call it something different, which I know I do. So I can start typing it in and I can see that mine says submitted date. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remap submittal date to submitted date. And then it's going to take care of that for me. Now, with activities and resources, we have the same thing. You have codes and UDFs on both of those. Now, in addition, on resources, if I go into my resources, I can actually see each resource that is included in this particular XCR. You can see I've got, several pages that are going here. So I could go through and I could check all of those and see if I wanted to deal with them in one way or the other. Now, in my case, I have some engineering or resources that are here. And really, I don't want all this detail for my schedule. What I want to do is I just want to report this and I want to reflect this as civil engineering as a whole. So what I could do is I know that I have that in there. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to pick that. Now I can see that my name doesn't match. So what I need to do is then go change that. I'm going to do the same thing on these other two. So now I am consolidating these and I am reporting at a higher level for this resource or expressing this at a higher level. So it's going to go and remap those for me. Now roles end up working the same. So I don't have, let's say I don't want to use EAI roles. What I want to do is use SCR. So I'm going to go and change these so that they reflect the proper tree in my roles and remap those also. Now back at my resources, a lot of times we have units of measure that are already defined in our database. And we may get units of measure in that don't match what we call them. So our definition doesn't match our definition. I can see that I have cubic meters here, and it's telling me it doesn't match what I have in my database. So I can go out and I can look what is the abbreviation that we use. So I can see that I actually have a capital M for mine. So I can choose that, and then when I choose that, I can actually see that we actually call that cubic meters. And so instead of creating a brand new cubic meters with a different abbreviation and a different name, I can actually keep my dictionary of units of measure clean and remap it and still get the same result from that. Our next piece is calendars. So at the global level, a lot of times we don't necessarily want to bring in calendars at the global level. Now, pretty much every database has a standard 5-day work week. It's delivered when you have the software installed. However, we don't know that this standard 5-day work week has the same setup or is defined the same way as the standard 5-day work week we have in our database. So what I want to do in this case is I actually want to roll this down and make it a project level calendar so that it does not overwrite my global calendars. So in this case, I'm just going to roll them all down so that I don't have anything that gets rewritten incorrectly or anything like that. So I'm rolling them all down. Now we also have the project area here. Now this is for informational purposes only. So say for instance, for one thing, I have 2 calendars and I only have one project in this XCR. But if I had multiple projects in this XCR, it would actually list the separate calendars and which project they actually belong to. In my case, I only have one. So let's say I have this Rapley 6-day calendar here. And actually, whoop, didn't mean to do that. And what I want to do here is I actually want to map one of my existing calendars at the global level that I'm rolling down to that Rapley calendar. I can take that and I can remap this Jefferson 6-day to the Rapley 6-day. They're the same, and so it's going to rename it, and I won't have an extra calendar if I don't want it. Lastly, in calendars, I have resource calendars. In this case, a lot of times we may have resource calendars that we work with our resources and in our database. If we wanted to make sure that we were mapping these to the proper place, what I can do is, again, I can delete that out and I can look and see where I want to remap this calendar to. So it's going to be a standard 5-day resource calendar. And now it's telling me that's okay, you can remap it to that. So you can also kind of redefine or remap what those calendars are for your resources too. Now, our last piece is cost accounts. You can set up your cost accounts and have them validated as you go. This works very much like the UDFs. So I can decide whether I want to keep or scrub them out. I could remap them if needed, whatever needs to happen on that. So once I have everything defined, how I want P6-Scrubber to handle this particular scrub or this particular client in this case, I can go and I can save this definition. So I can reuse it on all of their subsequent schedules that they send to me. So I can go and I can save this as, and let's just say this is going to be an example definition. And if I had notes to put in, I could put notes in and I could actually apply that and save it. So it's telling me it saved successfully. And now I can see up in this upper right-hand corner that I did indeed save it, and that is what is currently applied. So we have our definition that is actually, it's defined, it's saved, it's there. Now I want to scrub an XCR. Now in my case, I don't want to use this example definition. I want to use a different definition. So I can go again into this save and load definitions. I can choose the definition I want to use to scrub my file or files, and I can tell it to load it. Now again, it does come up and it tells me that demo definition is loaded, so I am ready to scrub a file. Once that's applied, I click this scrub files here, and it comes up and it tells me, well, what files do you actually want to scrub? So I can go out and let's say in this case, I want to scrub both of these. I can choose them both and I can open and tell it, that shows me that they're lined up there, and I can process both of them. So it's going to go out and work. And when it is finished, it's going to give me these buttons. So first of all, probably going to want to review the report. What this report does is it tells me all the changes that were made when Scrubber was run on this file with the definitions or the things that I defined. So in this report, I am getting some summary information up at the top. The file, if there, the projects that were involved, if there were one or two or however many, and then giving me a summary here. Now, if it's blank, it means that I did not have that particular module turned on. So I have my activity ID and my activity name that I didn't have turned on. Otherwise, it's going to give me kind of an accounting of what happened. As I scroll down for each piece, I can see very easily what passed and what had changes or something that occurred with them. So in the case of my project code type, I have in the gray here the definition, what was defined in my definition. Then when I get down to the bottom on each of these, I have some color tables. These color tables are going to tell me what happened to each one of these pieces. So I had client that got scrubbed out. I had client type that got scrubbed out. Now I kept district, however, I had a dictionary change. I also had type of schedule that was remapped to a code called schedule status. And it was, the dictionary had some things go on with it. So down below, I can see in my district dictionary, District 5 was changed to D5 and it was remapped. In my schedule status dictionary, I didn't have this BD code, so it was allowed to be added. And it will give you an accounting of everything that happened during this scrub. If you're not satisfied with it, you can simply go back, you can adjust your definition and save it and then rerun. In my case, I'm satisfied with that. So I'm ready to download my results. I can click the download button and tell it when I can, where I want to save it. And I'm going to go to Scrubber here and I'm going to save. Now, when I open this up, let me bring this over, it's on my other screen. I have two different files that were created by P6-Scrubber. First of all, I have my scrubbed file, and it is appended with the date and time that it was scrubbed. I also have an HTML report of the report we just looked at. So if I wanted to give feedback to, let's say, my contractor and let them know kind of what was lacking and how they measured up and things like that, I could actually send this to them or portions of it and give them feedback immediately. With my XCR, I'm ready to download that, or I'm ready to import that, excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and click on over to P6. And in P6, I've actually already imported the file. So you can see that I have some nice indicators that are imported in with this scrubbed file. It's actually giving me an accounting of what was changed and what actually didn't get changed during my scrub. So it's giving me that at the project level. What also has come in is a notebook, and that notebook is the same notebook that we looked at previously. So I can actually maintain what happened with this file via the notebook. Now, if I open up my activities here, I can also see how each one of my activity level pieces have also measured up. So if I move this down a little bit, I can see that looks like my vendors were really good. I have a work type code. So it looks like I've got some that match, but it's also warning me that, hey, you've got some that are missing. These particular activities don't have this. So I can go and I can check and see what's going on with those. Now in my discipline, it actually, in this case, it rolled it down, and I can see that it's telling me, okay, this has been rolled down, and it's giving me that X saying, yep, this had to change, this changed. And then again, I'm getting my yellows where I don't have any values that were defined. It's telling me about my activity UDFs. Did any of them change? Did some of them, and I can see that I have a work phase and a change order that actually got scrubbed out. And then my cost accounts. It's giving me feedback on those also. Now, also at the project level, I have the ability to look at my other level of activity codes. So I have it'll tell me about my activity codes, whether the dictionaries were okay, whether the code itself was okay, were my roles okay, were my resources. So I could also display these in a layout and take a look at those at the project level as well. Now, maybe you don't want to have these indicators come in, because the whole idea is to keep your database clean. And maybe you just don't want to have these indicators or the notebook come in. You can certainly decide one way or the other about that. And first of all, I'm going to open 2 projects so that we can do a comparison. And while that opens, I'm going to go show you how we can determine whether or not we're going to get any of the indicators or the notebooks created. In this general area here, by default, these settings are turned on. And the settings are whether I want to include a notebook in the file and whether I want to include indicators in my file. If, let's say, I just wanted the notebook, I could turn off my indicators and those would not be produced when the XCR was imported. So you can pick and choose what type of information you want P6-Scrubber to actually include on that summary information. So we've tried to think of everything here, actually. So back in P6, I have opened the old file as well as the new imported file. And I want to take a look at my roles and resources so you can see how those are actually indicated in P6. At the top here, I can see that I've got information on the old file. And then on the new, it's telling me that they have been remapped or changed in some manner. So all these have been changed to engineering CI. This doesn't show it very well, but this is actually, the roles are that SCR role that we were looking at. So that is essentially how everything comes in and is translated when it comes in on a scrubbed file. So before I leave here, are there questions while I'm in the live portion here?
Yeah, if there is any if you have any questions that it would be good for Sue to show, go ahead and throw them in the question area. We'll go get through them. There was one that came in the chat and it was related to the calendar. So let me go ahead and read it out. Okay. So is there a way to compare the working, non-working dates, times within an XCR file calendar to an existing calendar? So on screen. And I did reply in the chat. And so currently, no, we don't show you whether there's any difference. So when she did that remap, she would have had to know that they were the same in advance. So it is on our hit list of enhancements to the next version to be able to show you the calendar details before you accept it, before you remap it, and before you push it down to the project level. Okay, so okay, there's a question that came through. Can I use this if there are multiple projects in the XCR file? Will it roll down correctly?
Yes, it will. If there are multiple projects in an XCR file, what you're going to see is specifically on on codes. I did show you the calendars that you could see, what calendars were in the projects, each individual one. What you can do is, if you do decide to roll down a calendar, in this case, this discipline was rolled down. When you roll down a calendar, it will create that rolled down code and roll it down only to the projects where that code is actually used. So if the code is in one and not the other, It's only going to be created in the one where it was actually assigned to the activities within that particular project. And in this case, you can see that I have a star here, which I didn't show you before. This is acknowledging that you are okay to roll this down, and you're essentially getting a confirmation. So it's kind of your safety net to say, yes, I do want to roll this down. I want to acknowledge that this is okay. So that's what this star means. I didn't show that previously. But yes, it will roll down to its appropriate projects or project, depending on where it's used.
Okay, perfect. Now, you also showed how you can have more than one XCR file loaded in at once.
Hmm.
And so if you need the same definition, you can do it that way from two different XCR files, or if the person giving you the file brings two projects in at once, it will also read that and understand that. So you can do multi-project in those two different manners.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, good. Any other questions at the moment?
All right. I'm going to hand it back over to Nicole then.
Okay. So a few new features that we're working on for the next version will be XCR saving controls. So you can save the XCR to different versions, and XML reading and calendars. Those were the three big ticket items on upcoming versions. Okay. So we took a deep dive. Sue showed you how it works. I think the software is pretty easy to work with. So she showed you the on what we call our online version. So that is plugged onto a P6 database. Now, we also made an offline version. We thought that might be pretty useful for the independent consultants who need to be able to take an XCR, clean it up, and hand it over to the company they're working with, and they may not be able to. They may not want to hook that scrubber onto the database, or may not be allowed to because it's external. So that way you can still help your client, and they don't necessarily have to buy the scrubber. You can have it for your own use, and you can just charge them back on the whatever you want to charge them back for the scrub fee. Okay, so there we have both versions, and so just depending on your situation. Okay, so let me jump through to uh, wrap up on a few of the benefits. Hopefully you've seen some benefits. The clients that we have using it are saving a lot of stress, which is nice. Oh, there was just a quick question. Yes, roll codes. Yeah, that's a good point. So the question that came through is, are we going to extend the scrubs to do some of the newest version 20 features? Yes, good point. It is on our hit list to do that. And I think we've got some of them tackled, but not deployed yet. So yes. So just if you're not aware, the latest version 20, that came out for on-premise use, they added quite a few nice features to resources and roles. They've added also, so they've added codes to the roles. They've added codes to the resource assignments. They've added the ability to do the ups and downs like we do in resources in the roles, which is great. Finally, they've got that. And which allows you to change the rate as well as the number of people in the role. So that's fantastic. They also changed financial period capability to the project. So yes, we do need to add those features for the scrubber for that version. So some of the key benefits that our clients have given us feedback on is one of our big clients, they receive projects every few weeks from every single contractor. They upload them, they've got to give them feedback to make sure they meet contractual requirements. So giving that feedback very quickly and not having to be a P6 expert is a huge game changer. So they don't need as many schedulers. Their site engineers can actually do some of this function, and they're the main contacts with the contractor. So that's a big, big time saver, stress saver, because they have very strict reporting requirements. You saw how easy it was to use. So it's highly configurable. It makes getting these scrubs and definitions very easy, and they can be reused. So you don't have to, start from scratch every time with a bunch of macros or a bunch of global changes, depending on how you do all this right now. So it's much, much simpler. So the key benefit from the management perspective is, of course, the reporting comes out much cleaner. There's no oops moments happening, and they're never fun when you're going into a management meeting and you realize something's gone wrong. So that's a big stress saver. And of course, the accuracy is hugely important so that you can produce those reports very quickly. And if you've got any online immediate kind of dashboarding, it makes that a lot less stressful as well for the team. So in terms of what's next steps, how we can help. Well, we've been working on these types of tools. We've got a lot of these types of tools. And of course, that's only because we've been in this business for quite a long time. Emerald has been a partner for 27 years. I can't believe it. Yes, 27 years. Sorry, there was just a question that came up. So let me go ahead and try and tackle that, and then we can do the wrap up. Can you please explain the confidentiality takes place here? Most firms disagree to share schedules with external organizations. And of course, in this case, I'll need to upload my schedule XER to Emerald portal. Okay, so yeah, let me explain that. So we can deploy this more than one way. We can deploy it in the cloud portal, which is Emerald based, and your data is segregated. You get a corporate environment which you can share to other team members if you wish, or you can just have one user using it. So that's up to you. And it's a corporate environment, so it's secured to you. The number of scrubs that you've purchased is secured to that environment. So it is secure from that perspective. If need be, so we do have some clients that we're discussing, they need it to be not only secure, but it must be in certain countries and it needs certain things. So they're going to deploy it internal. So you can do it both ways. And again, those are different options with slightly different price points depending on those options. So that hopefully answers the question. So within your own corporate environment, you can share the projects or you can keep them to the definitions. You can share those definitions or you can keep them to yourself. So there's security that way as well. Okay. Okay, that was one. I think there's one more that's come in. Let me just see. Oh, it's the same question, just put in both portals. So hopefully I addressed that question. So yeah, let us know how we can help. And, there's many different things that we do. If there is something that you've seen that's interesting, please just go ahead and answer whether you want any follow-up from us, or whether you're just exploring and whether there is some action that you'd like to understand from this webinar. You can go ahead and answer that, because that's really what we specialize in, and that's what we've been doing for many, many years. And that's why you can see that we've got a lot of different tools. So we've got our scrubber, of course, that's addressing how to keep things clean. We've got P6 Loader that can also help you do some cleanup. We've got our P6 QA that helps you evaluate whether the data within the schedule is not only clean, but also a strong, well put together schedule. So that could be of interest if you're struggling with the quality of your actual schedule output. Okay. Okay, so thank you for answering that. And yeah, we'll try and keep the follow-up to what you've requested there. So I think we've addressed all the questions. So if you do have any more, go ahead and put them in, and I will try and tackle them. And if not, you've got Sue's contact info here, and we've got Donna can be reached in the Philippines through that phone number there. I should have put her email. Donna, go ahead and throw your email in. And if the team would prefer to follow up with someone who's closer, possibly geographically, go ahead and reach out to Donna through her email. Do you provide any trial versions? Not exactly, but we will give you a few free scrubs if you sign up for the tool. And obviously, if there's a problem with the tool, we would deal with a refund. But we will give you a few free scrubs in the if you do a purchase. All right, I think I've got all the questions answered. So certainly, if you want to stay on, you want to ask, go for it, and I'll try and answer them. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for attending.